to run through a quick explanation of the way we should be thinking about these templates, the way we should be thinking about the big picture of how we're servicing our clients, how we're getting them to results, and why specifically they are not built out to be these big, behemoth, mammoth-sized templates that are, going to follow up with prospects for the rest of their life. So it's called The Fastest Sales Journey Wins, and I subtitled it A Treatise on the Templates because it sounded kind of like, we're in revolutionary times or something like that. It's like I'm Thomas Paine or something out here. Okay, anyway, so in the DR lead nurturing sequence, there's 4 days of follow-up. Potentially, they get texted twice on the first day. That 30-minute opt-in is scheduled to go out after 30 minutes if there's no response and if it's at a decent hour of the day, I think in between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m., something like that. But then it follows up with them again once a day in between 10:30 a.m. and 11 a.m. For the next 3 days. And it's all text message and there's no email. And I get so many questions about this, and so many people are wondering why it's not bigger, wondering why, we're not this giant, texting platform that is blowing people up. And emailing them and doing phone calls and Facebook Messenger, all this stuff. So I just wanted to take a moment to explain that because there are good reasons in my experience, based on my experience, there are good reasons for all these things. So first of all, why not longer? Why don't we have a text message going out on day 6, day 10, day 15, then day 30, then once a month for the rest of their lives? Well, I did used to do it that way. When I first got in, I thought, well, why the heck not? It's automation, right? And by that, I mean, this was like 2 years ago with the first, automation I'd ever used. But as I started to dig into what the results meant, I found that it was quite literally a waste of time. So it actually takes you so much longer, so many more conversations with people to get that appointment when it's taking that long. And I don't just mean in terms of the days that they have to respond. Like, yes, obviously that's a longer sales journey. But I actually mean for the lead nurturing technician, having a conversation on day 3 that doesn't get resolved, day 6 that doesn't get resolved, day 10 that doesn't get resolved. My time, the amount of time that I have to put into those conversations with the types of people who get that much follow-up before they're able to, make a decision. Basically, what it's all going to come back to is prospect quality. You'll find that it takes so much more of your time to deal with those kinds of people. And it's much better to just kind of scoop off the lowest hanging fruit each time you do a database reactivation. Then the next reason why it's not longer is because when I used to do it and I knew that there was always going to be follow-up catching these people, it's much easier to kind of let them go and not push for the appointment. That if you've watched the video on verbiage, you know how important it is to stay super congruent and super laser focused on setting that appointment with every single text that you send. And the 4 days of follow-up kind of helps create it's sort of like a creative constraint, like how artists will have creative constraints. These 4 days are a creative constraint for us to make sure that we are, intimately aware that we have that amount of time to kind of get all the results that we can. So it keeps us on our, at our best, keeps us sharp in the way that we are managing these responses as techs. And again, that's sort of a mindset thing. You could hypothetically, do the same thing with longer follow-up, but that's just what I've experienced in myself and in other lead nurturing technicians that I've worked with. And then lastly, it's just going to increase the negative sentiment and opt-outs. You're going to have a lot more issues to deal with, people who are disgruntled, who don't want to be texted anymore, which just means, the database is shrinking because you're connecting with people at the wrong time. And rather than leave them alone until the next database reactivation when it might be the right time, we're hammering them and, eventually disgruntling them. On top of that, it's actually going to waste a lot of our time too, because every time we have one of those interactions, there are operations we have to do, procedures we have to take, get them out of the database, keep track of them. and or just respond to their text. And those conversations are totally worthless for results. There's no chance of moving them toward booking an appointment. Usually, very, very rarely are we able to actually turn those around and make them good prospects. But like those are a zero return activity. Like there is nothing good coming out of the negative sentiment and opt-outs. And that's the stuff that increases when you have longer sets of templates, of campaigns and automation. Next, we can take a look at why don't we have emails in there? This is something that I've kind of been on the fence about because, you can just set them up and let them go, and there's no real effort for it. Particularly before our original system didn't include the ability to have emails, so we would have had to kind of Frankenstein a MailChimp type of campaign situation with Zapier to kind of coordinate that. And now that we have everything integrated, I go back and forth, but at the end of the day, we haven't added them back in because, well, one, results are just so bad, at least for the fitness industry, that it's almost negligible, like very, very close to being totally negligible. The 80-20 principle is in total effect here, and the 80-20 principle says 80% of your results flow from 20% of the effort that you put in. And definitely that 20% of the effort is seen in the texting, and the other 80% of the effort that flows to 20% of the results, it's probably much, much worse than that in terms of the return. But that's the realm of emails. And, it's not enough to just say, well, emails are so simple, the automation is so easy, you can just set it up and let it fly. Because even if the automation is simple, the actual conversations themselves are not so simple. So think about it. Email is kind of a different beast than texting. That's not to say that it's really hard, but communicating with someone via email is different than communicating with someone via text. And us as lead nurturing technicians, we want to be incredibly efficient, doing the same thing over and over and over again. And that means being really good at one thing. So think about it like when you're sending an email, there's kind of different ways that you have to talk. For one, people expect it to kind of be longer. Email is based on like the tradition of the letter. So to make people happy over email, you have to put in more effort. You can't use contractions like L8R for later, that sort of thing. With texting, nobody really cares about that. But in email, you kind of have to make it more formal, and you have to, be willing to really put in some time into responses, because like you're responding to an email. It can take like 5 minutes to respond to an email. Or at least you need to make it look like you put time into responding to this email. Whereas with texting, like everybody expects, little one word responses, one line responses, whatever. You just can't really get away with that as much in email without, risking creating negative sentiment or rubbing the prospect the wrong way. And then on top of that, email goes really slow, because even when people do check and open and you're getting, an open rate from somebody, or you've got someone on the hook on their email, they may check that email and then respond to you, and you get back to them right away. But you'll find that you won't hear from them as quickly. You may not hear from them again until tomorrow, which of course, throws a wrench in the automation and can just throw a wrench in their whole prospect journey. The way this automation works is we're expecting to have full conversations with the prospect in a matter of minutes and kind of get them along that path into booking appointment, to making that decision to come in, as opposed to having these, multiple hour or multi-day long conversations back and forth over email, just because culturally speaking, it's just so much slower. People check it so much less frequently. So that's why, even though it is really easy to set up and just set it and forget it, when you take in all the different factors of what it means to add in email, it's just not really worth it to even add it back in. So in conclusion, I just wanted to say that all of this stuff, building out the automation, is always going to be a matter of diminishing returns. As in, the returns are there, possibly, but they're diminished. So I don't want to say that it's completely worthless. Like, I believe that you could probably hypothetically increase a booking ratio from a normal 4 to 5% to like a 5.5 or a 6, or maybe even more. I don't know, with these behemoth campaigns. And if that's you, you're totally welcome to try that. I wouldn't recommend it unless you're very experienced with lead nurturing already. But here's the question I want to leave you guys with. Would you rather A, get a really good booking ratio for a small handful of clients and then have to deal with bad show rates, or B, get a 3 to 5% at scale for 30 to 40 clients with excellent show rates and a faster sales pipeline? For us, it's B every time. You may be asking yourself, why the bad show rates? Well, when a prospect takes that long to make a decision, it kind of says something about the quality of the prospect. This is another thing that you'll find if you actually end up in a brick and mortar location, or if you actually have experience in the industry, or this is what I found in the fitness industry, at least. The people who went back and forth for a long time or took a few weeks of follow-up back when I was doing it that way, you could get an appointment or two out of some of them eventually. But what you find is that they just kind of end up being the worst prospects anyways. There's the people who are, least capable of making decisions. They're less confident in themselves. And since us in the fitness industry, we're always closing day one of this 10-day pass. We have this sales strategy where all our clients are trying to close on day one. If they don't close day one, then they're lost. So at the end of the day, we're way better off just scraping off, this 3 to 5%. That's the good apples, the lowest hanging fruit, and sending, these better, more qualified, more decision ready and active and, qualified prospects to these businesses. So that way they can kind of have the best shot at closing them, experience better show ratios, and be happier with our product. And then kind of just to leave you off with this last idea, one of the best things about database reactivation is that as long as they don't opt out, we're going to take another swing at them in 3 months. So it's not this one-time strategy that's now or never. So you kind of have to, milk it for all it's worth. We just kind of have this mindset of scraping off all the lowest hanging fruit, or the cream, or whatever imagery you want to use, and just getting a bunch of easy memberships out of it, and then nurturing the database and building it with ads and all their referrals and whatever other stuff they do, and then trying again in 3 or 4 months and getting the same exact result, just scraping the cream off. So this process is way easier for us, and it's more scalable for us and more efficient for us, because we kind of have this balance of, on one side, we want to get the best results, but on the other side, we want to be the most efficient and scalable with our time and energy as lead nurturers. And the templates, as the way they're set up now, is kind of that sweet spot that I've experienced and developed over 2 years to kind of get the best results and the most scalable results all in one. So that all being said, I challenge you guys to really dig in back to this mindset thing. We've got 4 days of follow-up to get all the best prospects who are ready to make decisions, good buying decisions, and just get them in as quickly and efficiently as possible, having conversations that last, minutes instead of hours and days and weeks and months and years. Just getting us across the finish line as fast as possible to getting our clients an ROI so we can experience, all the joys of positive business that we bring to our clients. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.